Welcome to the first video in advanced topics. This video, as you can see, is going to focus on divisibility, and then we have 4 other videos to watch. Just a note about these videos, there's going to be very few examples presented in the videos, mainly because I believe that's not something that we always have the luxury of in higher mathematics, and also that is something that we want to work on in our time together when we're face-to-face. So know that examples will be discussed in our face-to-face time more often than they will be presented in the videos. Okay, so first thing, divisibility in this chapter is kind of where we begin our foundations with number theory. So that's what we're going to focus on here in this video series, and then later weeks we'll actually start looking at applying this in our work with crypto systems. Okay, so first thing, we're also going to focus on integers more often than any other set of numbers, so just so that you're aware that we're going to be working on that. And in some cases, we're going to focus on natural numbers, so just be on the lookout for that. All right, first definition that we're going to come across, so we're going to say A, B are integers. Okay, yes, I'm going to use shorthand notation so I don't have to write a ton. And we're also saying B is not 0. Then our language here is that B is going to divide A, and this is the symbol that we use to say that. B, and then this vertical bar, like an absolute value, divides A. Equivalently, we could say A is divisible by B, and this is going to be true if we can say that A, if I can get this thing to write, A is going to be equal to B times C for some integer C. There we go. All right. Then, so this is just how we talk about divisibility in number theory. And then later on in your homework, and yes, you are going to have to do this, you are going to prove this proposition. So this says, if we know A divides B and B divides C, well then A divides C, and then A divides B and B divides A, then A is plus or minus B, so the same thing up to a minus sign. And then last is A divides C and A divides B. That means that A divides the sum or A divides the difference. Okay. So, and then just as a hint for your homework, if to prove each of these, I'm going to tell you using this definition is like going to be a lifesaver. So make sure to try that idea out in proving each of these. Okay, and then just something that I want you to pause the video and think about is, so you have this previous notion of divisibility from, elementary school when you first learned to divide numbers or whatever. How does that compare to this? Okay, so how's it same? How's it different? So pause the video and just take a moment to think about that. All right, and then when we think about our proposition that we just discussed, A has a name associated to it. You might not think of it right away, but A, we would think of, okay, so if A divides C and A divides B, then we would say A is a common divisor of B and C. I'm not going to write it out. And in some instances, it could even be the greatest. Okay, this idea of greatest common divisor, GCD, is going to be extremely important when we're working with crypto systems and in number theory in general. So we want to focus a lot of our energy to try and find these whenever possible. Okay, so then finding that, it's kind of like with small numbers, you can kind of know, like, the multiples, you find the multiples and just kind of go through the multiples of one number until you hit the multiple of another, of the other number. And then, or maybe not multiples, but maybe factors too. Okay, so either way works. But it's a little like guess and check sort of thing, and guess and check is always valid. I don't want to diminish that. However, to find the GCD more methodically, we're going to kind of go through a system that'll do that for us, but we need to remember how to do long division first. So this is my example for the video. Yes, it is going through and finding the GCD. So I want you to pause the video here and do this out yourself the old-fashioned way, not with a calculator or anything like that, but just go through and do it. And when you pause the video and did it, you should have gotten this, 39 remainder 5, so then we can write this as, to get 512, we do 13 times 39 plus 5. Okay, simple enough. Okay, now this whole process is really just called the division algorithm, or what we call the division algorithm in number theory. So the definition here is we have two positive integers. The subscript is just saying that the integers we choose from have to be positive. Great. Then there exists a unique, that's what the exclamation mark means, exists unique Q and R in integers such that this is all true. And I forgot a period. That the value of R must be less than B. Okay, but still non-negative. Okay, so then how do we use this to find the GCD? Well, I'm glad that I asked, because what we're going to do is, well, let's see. I'm going to say take that expression that I found above, plus Q, oh, B times Q. Let's erase all that. Alright, so I erased it and rewrote it, and when I did that, I got, so this is what I started with. Now, remember that proposition, whatever up here that we were talking about? I'm going to use the third part, so if A divides C and A divides B, then A divides the sum or the difference. So then, I'm going to think about this a little bit. So if I want to find the GCD of A and B, okay, and remembering that idea that if I have something that divides A and B, well, that's going to have to divide the sum as well, right? So I think it's enough to say that from that proposition that this is going to be the same, the GCD of A and B is going to be the same as GCD of B and R. So then, using that idea, okay, so I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to come down here, and so then I can write B as a, or using the division algorithm, so I can use the division algorithm, and I'm going to get this new Q prime plus R prime, okay? And then, now let's say that there's still a sum. Okay, so then I can go and say, well, this is actually then, okay, this is going to equal that, most certainly, and then all that's going to equal the GCD of R and R prime. Okay, and then, so I go there, and then I'm going to go down here, repeat that. Okay, so it's an iterative process. It's kind of an idea, or an algorithm rather, and that's what we're going to talk about at the beginning of the next video.